Friday night I had a great time with about 5,000 of my good friends, all supporting Rosa. They thought they were there for Bernie. But I'm going to tell you, the presence of Rosa's signs and the call to say, reach out to Rosa was wonderful. She got mentioned several times on the stage. And just know that there's a lot of people who now know Rosa who didn't know before Friday. And so if you were there, thank you for being there and for helping to support her in that. And if you like Bernie too, that's all right. I want to take you back to 1991, where I went to one of the pivotal points of my movie watching career. Three guys left their home in New York City and got on horses. And met this grizzled old cowboy named Curly. One of them was Mitch. And Mitch at first didn't like Curly very much, but he learned to see strength and wisdom in that man. And at one point, Curly reached over to Mitch and looked at him and said, "One thing is the secret of life." "Well, tell me what it is." "Nope. You have to figure that out yourself." And through my life, that little moment in that funny film continues to haunt me. Continues to call me back and say, what is that one thing? What is that one thing for me? How is that one thing moving into me? How am I holding on to it? How am I letting it inform me and move in me? In the search for that one thing, what is the important thing to do and be is at the core of what we do here, isn't it? Trying to discover how it is that we can be that one thing in this moment, how we can hear that voice of God and live it out, is the core of what we do in church, isn't it? Trying to figure out that one question. And for the young man who went to Jesus, he wanted to know that answer. What must I do to inherit eternal life? Now, you know kind of what that question was. It was, give me the answer that says, in 3 steps, how do I get there? How many have asked that kind of question of God? Just make it simple, God. Make it the easy steps. Make it the ones that I can figure out. And maybe even, if it's okay, the ones that I'm already doing. So I could just keep doing that. And he outlined all the stuff that he was already doing. It was pretty good stuff, wasn't it? All those things, all those commandments that he'd been taught. There he was doing them. And did you notice what happened right at the end of when he spoke all of that? It said Jesus loved him. Because he understood how easy it is to like just the easy answers. The ones you already know. But God never leaves us in just those simple answers alone. God always calls us to the next step. The step that sometimes feels frightening to us. But often feels beyond what we can do, beyond what we do know. And so we hesitate. And for that young man, it was those possessions that he had. Those things that he had clasped, those things that were so important to him. And did you notice that Jesus never said those things were wrong or bad? He just said the man needed to let go of them so that he could move forward. And how many have learned that letting go, though, of something that you've decided is important is not a simple task? Because you hold on to them because they are so important. And there's so many reasons you have to hold on and to keep them close. And the call comes. And it's a great temptation for us to look down on the young man and say, well, I can let go. I don't need all that stuff. That's not important to me. But it's not what he's holding on to that's important. It's the holding on itself, because we all do that. There's something that we still have that we grasp hold of that makes it so that in this moment we don't feel the need to move. We don't feel the desire to want to move. We don't see what it is that God is calling us to. Or maybe even worse, we see what God calls us to and we don't want to go down that road. Because it's a frightening road. It's a challenging road. It's a road full of unknowns that we're not sure we want to see. There's that movie that you might have heard of in the theaters right now called The Martian. And in that movie, Matt Damon plays this guy who, here he is on the Martian surface. There he is, taking care of things, and all of a sudden, he's there with all his buddies, and all of a sudden a storm comes up and he's left alone. And he has to say, what next? And I think that that's kind of how that rich young man felt in that moment when Jesus said, let go of your stuff. Because it feels impossible in that moment. Come and do this, says Jesus, and the guy's going, but wait, I don't know how to let go. I don't want to let go. And the road in front seems so impossible. It's asking too much of me. When we are confronted by the present reality of God, it often overwhelms our ability to move forward. Because it's too much for us to integrate into ourselves. Because it redefines ourselves and that stuff around us. And we have to decide what to do next. Joni and I watch a show on TV. You might have heard of it. It's called The Amazing Race. Anybody else watch it? Come on, you can admit it. I admitted it. Come on. All right. And it's this show about how people go all over the nation racing against each other, and they get to see all these places. And here's what it does to me, is it makes my bucket list of places I want to go to grow every single week. I want to go there too. I want to go there. I want to do that. I want to see that. I want to... And it's a great show if you want to visit the world through a TV screen, because you get to see all these marvelous places. But it also is a wonderful show about human beings. And because they have to compete against each other and with each other in a team. And one of the things that made it so that I fell in love with the show happens a number of years ago. And it was this young couple named Uchenna and Joyce. And they got to do a thing called fast forward. Now, fast forward means you get to skip some of the stuff. How many of you ever wanted to skip some of the stuff? All right? And so they get to skip forward and hopefully win. And so they decide to go follow this. And they go and they do this. But it doesn't quite say what it is they have to do until they get there. And then they get there. And Uchenna's in for this thing. But you see, Uchenna has no hair on his head. And the goal in this one is to shave off all your hair. So he says, that's a good one. Let's do that, until he looks into his wife's eyes. And he looks at that gorgeous hair on her head. And he sees the struggle she has to say, oh my gosh, this is not a simple choice. She's looking down a scary road. She's saying, can I do it? Can I be that? And one of the things I loved about what Uchenna did in this moment is as they sat there and those barbers took that hair from her head, Uchenna held her hands and looked into her eyes and said, we're going to be okay. And more importantly, said, you're beautiful every single step. Right? And she was gorgeous, even with all that hair gone. But it's sometimes it's difficult for us to see from here in this moment of the challenge at the beginning of the road, to be able to see the gorgeousness that's still there at the end of the road. Because of whatever it is that we feel we're losing, whatever it is that we can't have, whatever it is that's there confronting us, we hesitate, and yet the call goes up. You lack one thing. It's just that hair on your head. It's just that fear in your soul. It's just that one thing you're clasping hold of. What are you going to do? Can you let go? Can you take the next step? Growing up, one of the scriptures that my mom loved to tell us about was at the end of part of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew. And it says, "Be ye therefore perfect." Sorry, I always quote it in King James Version. "Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." And what my mom meant by that is quit making all those mistakes you're making. Quit doing all those things wrong that you're doing wrong. And I've come to learn that that word perfect in there is more important than just quit making that mistake. The word that's translated there is a word called teleos. And it's a wonderful word. It means closer, perfect is a good translation, but it means closer to complete and whole. And be everything you can be. Be more than what you are right now. And the problem is that we sit at those crossroads like the young man, and we say, I'm already really good. Look at all these things that I am. And God says, but I have something else that can complete you even more. Something more that you can be to be able to be complete. Take this step and become this thing. And our hearts often quake. Two of my friends, Jeff Proctor Murphy and David Felton, wrote a Bible study, not really a Bible study, a concept study called Living the Questions. How many have done that course? It's a great set of curriculum that makes it so that instead of resting in the answers that we already know, it asks us to move into the questions that are challenging for us. And to live in those questions and let those questions draw us beyond now. And they talk about how there's three macro stories in the Bible. And it's the stories of bondage to liberation, from sin to forgiveness, and from exile to return. All of them going from somewhere we are stuck towards something new and different. And asks us to cross through that Red Sea and into the wilderness and towards that promised land. And crossing through that wilderness is what makes our souls quake. And in that space between the Red Sea and the River Jordan, we all find reasons to turn back and to look away. And yet God calls us to take that next step, to discover what it is we ought to be. You lack one thing. And let me tell you the secret about that one thing. It usually involves somebody else. It usually involves reaching into somebody's life that maybe challenges you in some way or another. Makes you have to become something for them or something because of them so that you grow in order to let them grow. And our hearts often don't want to do that because we like to figure out our own stuff. Look, I only want the short walk. But God calls us to the longer, challenging walk. And when we figure out that one thing, that thing which draws us forward, guess where God will be? Right there in that moment saying, I got one thing for you. It will draw us another step. And when we get there, another step. And another. And God continually draws us further and further into relationship with each other, in relationship in this world, in a way that somehow changes us beyond our fears, beyond what we wish would have happened. Jesus loved the young man because he was ready to take that step, even though he feared it. And so he asked him, take this step. Let go of these things. And we stand like the young man, not knowing how to let go, but we place our trust in the one who is asking us. And we somehow figure out how to pry our fingers loose from that thing we're holding on to so that we can step forward and discover what God can be, what we can be, what this world can be, if only we can have that trust to let go. Robert Louis Stevenson said, you know Robert Louis Stevenson wrote Alice in Wonderland, a lot of other books. It's better than to arrive. To travel hopefully is better than to arrive. And our job is to travel instead of trying to arrive, instead of trying to be, instead of trying to sit here on this end of that journey, is to get into the journey and allow that journey to carry us forward. And we forget in every moment the importance of that journey and the importance of what happens as we go there. In this place we say, one of the things we say we do is religion. Does everyone know what religion means? Literally? It comes from Latin and it means religio. To re-tie. Like a ligament that connects things together. It's to reconnect us. Right? We began talking to each other and struggling with it all. And in the midst of that, one lady who was very supportive and doing lots of great stuff stood up and was talking, and all of a sudden stopped and said, but wait, I don't even know. I've been using this word homeless. Is that what you want us to call you? Is that a good word for you? And one of our homeless friends stood up and she said, I like to be called Glenda. And we began to change because we connected in that moment. We reconnected. We become religion for each other in that moment. We began to see not us in that moment. We began to hear each other differently than what we sometimes do. And in that scary road, suddenly, religio happened. May you be blessed on your scary roads the very same way. Amen.